Level 1. The employee. You check your bank app before you check the weather. It's a Tuesday. $1,142.18. Rent is due in 6 days. You do the math without meaning to. You've done it so many times it happens automatically. Like breathing. You work 41 hours a week at a logistics company you don't particularly like or hate. Your paycheck lands every other Friday, always a little smaller than you remember, because you forgot about the thing that got taken out this time. You think about money the way most people do, as something that happens to you. It arrives, it leaves. You are a place money passes through, not a place it stays. There's a guy at work named Reg. He's been there 14 years. He drives a Corolla with 190,000 miles on it and never complains about it, which you find strange because everyone else complains about everything. One Tuesday in the break room, you're venting about your paycheck, how it never stretches, how you did the math 4 different ways and it still comes up short. Reg is stirring his coffee. He doesn't look up. "You're not going to save your way out of this," he says. "You have to start thinking differently. Not working differently, thinking differently." You laugh a little because it sounds like something from a poster in a dentist's office. Different how? He shrugs. Ask yourself where money actually comes from, not your paycheck. Money, in general. Where does it come from? You don't have an answer. You go back to your desk. You check the bank app again, out of habit, even though nothing has changed since 11 minutes ago. $1,142.18. Still. You forget about the conversation by Thursday. Level 2. The one who starts asking different questions. You don't forget about it, actually. Not completely. 3 weeks later, you're lying in bed, unable to sleep, and Reggie's question surfaces out of nowhere. Where does money actually come from? You pick up your phone and type it into a search bar at 1 a.m., half embarrassed, like you're Googling something you should already know at your age. The answers are dense. Words like equity, cash flow, appreciating assets. You don't understand most of it. You read anyway, because for the first time in a long time, something feels like a door instead of a wall. You start watching interviews with people who built things. Not out of admiration exactly, more like reconnaissance. You notice a pattern in how they talk. None of them describe money as something you earn. They describe it as something you own a piece of. You open a brokerage app. It takes 11 minutes to set up, most of which is you second-guessing whether this is a scam. You put in $340. What's left after rent? After the card payment? After groceries? It feels stupid. It feels like putting a bucket under a leaking roof. It is nothing, for now. But something has shifted that has nothing to do with the $340. You've stopped waiting for a raise to fix your life. Nobody around you notices because nothing about your apartment, your car, your Tuesday looks any different. The only thing that's changed is invisible. Level 3. The investor. The first red day nearly ends the whole experiment. 6 weeks in, your $340 is $298. You stare at the number like it insulted you personally. You almost pull it out. Your thumb actually hovers over the sell button. And then you remember something one of those interviews said. The market doesn't care about your feelings, and neither should you. You don't sell. You close the app instead, which feels like the harder decision. 18 months later, it's $6,200. The number itself doesn't change you. The sentence that runs through your head the first time you see the account earn more in a single day than your job pays you in a day, that changes you. The money is working. I don't have to be there for it to work. You start splitting your paycheck differently. Not spending less on principal, allocating on purpose before you're tempted to touch it. You automate the transfer so willpower isn't required. There's a night around month 9 where a coworker invites you to a birthday dinner, and it's $62 for your share. And you actually sit in the parking lot doing the math on whether that $62 is worth more, sitting in the account or sitting at the table. You go. You order water instead of a drink. Nobody notices, you notice. You start reading balance sheets, actual company filings, because you want to understand what you're buying instead of guessing. The first one you open might as well be in another language. Current assets, long-term liabilities, retained earnings. You read the same paragraph 3 times. You look up one term, then the next term inside that definition, 4 layers deep, until you've forgotten what you were originally looking up. You close the laptop, annoyed at yourself. The next night, you open it again. That's the part nobody puts in the interviews. Not the insight, the repetition. You do this 4 nights a week for months before any of it starts to feel like a language instead of a wall. Level 4. The builder. You start something on the side. Not a business plan. A Craigslist post offering a service you already know how to do. Sold to people who'll pay a stranger for it. The first client pays you $400 for a job that took 6 hours. It feels bigger than any paycheck you've ever received because nobody assigned it to you. You built the conditions for it to exist. You work your job during the day and this at night. Your friends stop inviting you out on weeknights, then stop inviting you out on weekends too, because you keep saying no. You tell yourself it's temporary. It isn't. This is the new normal, and some part of you already knows it. There's a stretch in month 4 where a client, your biggest one, doesn't pay. Ghosts you completely after the work is delivered. $1,100 gone, no response to 4 emails. You spend a weekend furious refreshing your inbox, calculating what that money would have covered. Nobody warns you that this is part of the job too. Not just building, collecting. You build a contract after that. A real one with a lawyer-adjacent template you find online and modify at 11 p.m. You've never needed a contract before in your life. Now you don't do anything without one. There's a smaller humiliation buried in month 5 that you don't tell anyone about. A client asks for a discount and you give it because you're scared of losing the work. And the moment you hit send on that email, you understand, clearly, uncomfortably, that you just told the market you're worth less than you said you were worth an hour earlier. You don't do that again. Not because you get more confident overnight, but because you remember exactly how that email felt in your stomach. 6 months in, the side thing makes more in a month than your job pays in 2 weeks. You do the math on quitting. You do it 4 more times that same week. On a napkin, on your phone, in your head at 3 a.m. Level 5. The multiplier. Sunday night, you open your calendar. There's a meeting scheduled for Monday at 8:30. You stare at it. You don't delete it. You're not sure why it's still there. Monday morning, your alarm goes off. You turn it off. You wait. 8:17. You should be getting in the car. Instead, you're at your kitchen table in yesterday's clothes, looking at payroll software you signed up for 2 weeks ago and haven't used yet because you just hired your first person, a freelancer, part-time, $18 an hour, to handle the work you can no longer do alone. You never send a resignation email. You just don't show up. And by Wednesday, your manager calls and you tell him, and it's over in 4 minutes after 5 years. Friday, you have to make sure someone else's rent clears. Your bank app notification used to say minus $14.50, coffee shop. Now it says minus $1,800, payroll, and you feel something you didn't expect the first time you see it. Not pride, fear. This is the moment the mindset actually locks into place. Because for the first time you understand a sentence that used to sound like a platitude. Rich people don't get paid for their time. They get paid for other people's time, multiplied. You're bad at delegating at first. You redo work that was done correctly because you don't trust anyone's judgment but your own. Your first hire quits after 7 weeks, frustrated that you keep rewriting everything she does. You take it personally for exactly one night, and then you understand, correctly, painfully, that it was your fault, not hers. You hire again. You let go this time. It's harder than the first hire was. Month 4, with employees, a client cancels a contract 2 days before a deadline. No explanation, no warning. It's $6,000 of work you can't rebill anywhere else. You spend that night doing something you haven't done since before the brokerage account existed. Subtracting instead of adding. You realize somewhere around 1 a.m. that the fear hasn't gone away at any level of this. It's just changed size. It used to be $1,142.18 in a checking account. Now it's a client contract with too many zeros and no signature backup plan. Every hour you successfully hand off is an hour that used to have a ceiling on it and now doesn't. Level 6. The insider. The business grows enough that you start getting invited to rooms you didn't know existed. A dinner, a small conference panel, a group chat someone adds you to because a mutual connection vouched for you without asking first. You almost don't go to the first one. You own one decent blazer and you're not sure it's decent enough. In the room, you notice something immediately. Nobody talks about money the way people used to talk about money. Nobody complains about prices. Nobody says, I can't afford that. They say, that's not where I want to allocate capital right now, which means the same thing, filtered through a completely different relationship to scarcity. You don't become wealthy because you meet these people. You get invited to meet these people because you'd already started becoming someone worth introducing. That distinction matters more than it sounds like it should. You absorb the way they think without meaning to. Risk isn't something to avoid. It's something to price correctly. Debt isn't dangerous. Leverage is a tool. If you understand exactly what you're leveraging and exactly what it costs you if you're wrong. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's tuition. And everyone in the room has a story about the tuition they paid. You also notice something quieter. A man at the dinner, easily worth 8 figures, spends 20 minutes asking you questions about your small operation, like it's the most interesting thing in the room. Later you realize he doesn't have many people left who talk to him without an angle. You clock it the way you clock weather. You don't think much of it yet. Someone at the table mentions almost in passing that they haven't taken a salary from their main company in 6 years. Everything comes from equity, from ownership, from things that appreciate whether or not they show up to work on a given day. You go home and can't sleep, running the math on your own business the same way. And for the first time, you understand that the goal was never a bigger paycheck. A paycheck at any size is still just a place money passes through you on its way somewhere else. Ownership is different. Ownership is the place money stops. Level 7. The owner. 3 years in, the business isn't a side hustle anymore, or even a small company. It's 14 people, a real office, contracts with names on them you recognize from the news. A partner joins, someone with capital and connections you don't have. The partnership almost breaks in the first year over a decision that seems small in hindsight, whether to take a client who pays well but treats your staff badly. You say no. He says the money doesn't care about your feelings. You nearly lose him over it. You don't, but the relationship is never quite as easy again. The company is doing well enough now that a bad month doesn't scare you. A bad year wouldn't scare you. The small emergencies that used to derail your whole month, a car repair, a broken laptop, a medical bill, don't register anymore. You pay them the same day and forget about them by dinner. This is the freedom you were chasing. For a while, it feels exactly like you imagined it would. Then people start asking you for money. Not strangers, people you love. A cousin who needs help with rent. An old friend with a business idea that doesn't survive one honest conversation. Your brother, who has never asked you for anything in his life, asks you for $8,000 and can't quite look at you while he does it. You say yes to the first few. You start saying no to the ones after that, and you learn something nobody warns you about. Saying no to people you love costs more than the money would have. The small problems are gone. The big ones just moved in and made themselves at home. Level 8. The allocator. The company is no longer a company you run. It's a company you own, which is a different job entirely. 60 employees now across 2 offices, and your calendar looks nothing like it did 5 years ago. Reviewed by an assistant, blocked out in colors you didn't choose. You've started allocating capital the way the people at that first dinner did. Not just reinvesting in your own business, but into other people's businesses, into property, into a small fund you didn't expect to end up co-managing. The first real loss hits here, not the $40 kind from years ago. A company you invested in, one you believed in, one whose founder you liked, folds. 6 figures gone, along with 8 months of your attention and, if you're honest, some of your certainty that you'd finally figured this out. You don't sleep well for 2 weeks. Then you do the thing that separates this level from every level before it. You write down exactly what you missed, exactly what you do differently, and you move on to the next decision the following Monday. Because there's always a next decision, and it doesn't wait for you to feel better. There's a partner meeting a few months later where 2 of your senior people disagree, loudly, about whether to expand into a market you don't fully understand yet. You're the tiebreaker. You realize sitting there that being the owner doesn't mean having the best answer in the room. It means being the one who has to choose an answer anyway, publicly, and live with being wrong in front of 60 people if it turns out that way. You choose. You're wrong, partially. The market takes 11 months longer to become profitable than you told everyone it would. Nobody lets you forget it, gently, for a year. You used to think being rich meant answering to no one. The opposite happens. You answer to more people than you did as an employee. You just don't have a boss anymore. You have 60 households whose rent depends on decisions you make alone, at night, with no one to check your thinking against except people who also work for you. An employee's child needs surgery insurance won't fully cover. You quietly close the gap. Nobody finds out except the 2 of you. You used to check your bank app to see if you were okay. Now you check it to see if they're okay. The notification isn't about you anymore. It's payroll clearing. It's a fund distribution. It's other people's lives, moving through an account that happens to have your name on it. Your accountant sits across from you one afternoon with a number for the year's tax bill that makes you put your coffee down before you finish the sip. It's larger than everything you earned in your first 6 years combined. You don't argue it. You don't feel angry about it exactly. You just sit with the strange fact that the version of you from level 1 would have found this number unbelievable in either direction. Impossible to owe and impossible to have. Level 9. The institution. You stop being a person with a company. You become something closer to an institution. A family office, a board, a name attached to decisions that affect people who will never meet you. The office you set up a few years ago to manage your own capital now manages capital for 2 other families as well. Ones who ask to invest alongside you rather than compete with you. Nobody announces this as a milestone. Your chief financial officer mentions it in passing during a normal Tuesday update. The same tone she'd used to mention the copier was fixed. And you almost miss it. The fact that people now trust you with money that was never yours to lose. You go to a family dinner and feel the room recalibrate the second you walk in. Jokes get gentler. Requests get more careful, more indirect, wrapped in small talk before they arrive. You realize sitting at a table you've sat at your whole life that you'll never again know with total certainty whether someone's being kind to you or kind to what you can do for them. You used to have 12 people you'd call at 2 a.m. Now you have 2, and you're honestly not sure whose fault that is. A lawsuit arrives, not because you did anything wrong, but because you're now the kind of target that attracts lawsuits whether or not you did anything wrong. Somewhere in the middle of the complaint, buried in a paragraph about damages, is a sentence listing your fund's total assets under management. 10 digits. You've watched that number move on your own quarterly reports for 2 years, seeing it typed out by an opposing lawyer in a font that isn't yours, in a document trying to take something from you. Makes it feel real in a way your own spreadsheets never quite managed. Not proud, not embarrassed, just real. You spend 11 months in a legal bill with too many zeros proving something that was true the entire time. You win. It doesn't feel like winning. It feels like exhaustion with a certificate. The old friends who never ask you for anything become the most valuable people in your life, and you can count them on one hand. And you've started actually protecting that hand the way you protect the business. Almost every message that arrives now wants something from you. You've become fluent in a kind of reading you never had to do before. Figuring out 3 sentences into a text from someone you've known for 20 years. Whether this is a friend or a favor wearing a friend's name. You go to your 10-year reunion, mostly out of curiosity about who you used to be. Someone you barely spoke to in school corners you for 40 minutes with a pitch deck on his phone. Someone else who you actually liked back then spends the whole conversation asking about your kids instead of your net worth, and you find yourself grateful in a way that embarrasses you a little, grateful that a person just wanted to know how you were doing. You start hiring people whose entire job is protecting you from the version of the world that only sees the number. A woman named Priya screens your calls now. You used to be someone nobody needed to screen. Level 10. The one who thinks in systems. Years in, you stop thinking about money almost entirely. Not because you have enough, you crossed enough. So long ago, you didn't notice the line pass beneath you. You stopped thinking about money because you've started thinking about something bigger. What outlives you? You sit in an office one evening long after everyone else has left, reviewing a family trust document with a lawyer's tracked changes still glowing on the screen. The structure spans 4 entities and 3 jurisdictions, and you no longer need someone to explain to you why. You're deciding how capital moves after you're not the one moving it. You're thinking about people who haven't been born yet. Your chief financial officer's year-end letter arrives that same week, a few lines longer than usual. Buried in the 4th paragraph, past the fund positions and the property valuations, is a single sentence about your personal equity stake following the last funding round. A 10-figure number for the first time, sitting after your name instead of the funds. You read it once. You don't reread it. There's a board call in 11 minutes and 3 other things to review before it starts. Your assistant flags a notification. A routine transfer, 9 figures, moving between 2 of those entities for reasons that would take an accountant to explain and no longer feel remarkable to you at all. You glance at it the way you used to glance at the weather. It registers, and it's gone. Somewhere in the same week, an operations report crosses your desk. A routine one, the kind you used to read line by line and now mostly skim. A single sentence near the bottom notes the combined headcount across the businesses you now hold pieces of. More people than the town you grew up in. You read it twice, not because the number impresses you, but because you can't picture their faces. And you used to be able to picture the face of every person whose paycheck depended on you. Later that same week, you sit in on a call with the small charitable foundation you started almost by accident 5 years ago, back when a single scholarship felt like a meaningful thing to fund. It isn't small anymore. Someone reads out a list of a few hundred names. Students this year whose tuition is covered because of decisions your younger self would never have believed you'd get to make. You don't say much on the call. You just listen to the names. You think back unprompted to a Tuesday in a break room. A man named Reg, stirring his coffee, not looking up. You have to start thinking differently, not working differently. You finally understand what he meant. And it's not what you thought it meant at the time. It was never about the money. It was about becoming someone who sees money as a tool instead of a scoreboard. And that shift cost you almost everything that used to make you feel safe. Your old certainty, your easy trust, the version of hanging out that didn't require 3 assistants coordinating calendars, the plain, unremarkable comfort of being just another person in a room. You open an old folder you keep for no practical reason. Screenshots from years ago. A brokerage account with $340 in it. A payroll notification for $1,800 that once terrified you. You almost don't recognize the person those numbers belong to. You gained a kind of freedom most people will never touch in their lives. You lost a specific, ordinary piece of being unremarkable. Nobody warns you that both of those things are true at the same time, and that you don't get to choose only one. Somewhere right now, someone is checking their bank app before they check the weather. It's a Tuesday. The number is smaller than they'd like. They do the math without meaning to, the way they've done it 100 times before. Someone near them, a coworker, an older relative, a stranger stirring coffee in a break room, is about to say something they won't fully understand yet. You're not going to save your way out of this. You have to start thinking differently. They'll laugh a little. It'll sound like something from a poster in a dentist's office. They won't get it. Not yet. The cycle continues.